I kicked my cousin's husband out of my parents' anniversary party. After he said we weren't his family and made my mom cry, then refused to go to their wedding. Now she's living in my guest room. After leaving him hi Reddit, I need to know if I made the right call. My cousin Cynthia, 26F, got married 3 weeks ago, and I, 31F, didn't go. Our family is split down the middle about it, and I keep getting messages telling me I destroyed our relationship over nothing. Cynthia and I grew up together. My dad is the youngest of 4 kids, and Cynthia's mom is the oldest, so there's almost 20 years between them. That meant Cynthia and I were born close together despite being a generation apart technically. We're only 5 years apart in age. Growing up, we were more like sisters than cousins. We did everything together. When I got my driver's license, I was the one who picked her up from middle school dances when things went bad. When she started college, I was her emergency contact for the first 2 years. She called me before she called her parents about most things. 3 years ago, Cynthia started dating Lucas, 25M. He works in software development and came from a family about 2 hours north of us. When she first introduced him to the family, we all made an effort. My parents invited them to Sunday dinners. My aunt and uncle brought him along on their annual camping trip. I invited them both to my son's birthday party. We wanted him to feel welcome, but Lucas always seemed put out by our family. At dinners, he would sit at the table and barely speak unless Cynthia was talking directly to him. If she got up to help in the kitchen or play with the kids, he would follow her around or text her to come back. At my son's party, Cynthia was helping my other cousin's daughter with face painting, and Lucas stood there with his arms crossed the whole time. When it was time to cut the cake, he told Cynthia they needed to leave. She tried to explain that we hadn't even done presents yet, and he just walked out to the car. She followed 10 minutes later looking like she wanted to cry. Cynthia's dad always made excuses. He would say Lucas was just shy around big groups. He would say Lucas came from a small family and wasn't used to the chaos. He insisted that Lucas was completely different when it was just the 4 of them having dinner. I didn't buy it. Last year, my husband and I invited Cynthia and Lucas to come see a play downtown. It was just the 4 of us. Lucas spent the entire dinner before the show talking about how community theater was a waste of money and people who couldn't make it professionally shouldn't bother performing. My husband is in a community theater group. We didn't invite them out again after that. When Cynthia called to tell me she was engaged, I was one of the first people she told. She called at 7 in the morning because she couldn't wait. I was genuinely happy for her on the phone. But over the next few months, things started changing. She told me her bridesmaids would be Lucas's 2 sisters and her college roommate. We had always joked about being in each other's weddings since we were teenagers. I didn't say anything about it because I didn't want to make her engagement about me. Then his family threw an engagement party and didn't invite any of us. Cynthia told my mom it was just parents and siblings, very small and intimate. But my younger cousin found photos on social media showing at least 30 people there, including Lucas's extended family and his friends from college. When my mom asked Cynthia about it, she said Lucas's parents had handled the guest list, and she didn't have any control over it. That was the first time I really noticed her making excuses for them. 2 months before the wedding, Cynthia went dress shopping. She took Lucas's mom and his 2 sisters. My mom asked if she could come, and Cynthia said the bridal shop only allowed a certain number of guests. I asked her directly if she was pulling away from our family, and she got defensive. She said I was being dramatic and that she was just trying to include Lucas's family in the planning. But it kept happening. Every wedding event seemed to include his family and exclude ours. One night, Cynthia and Lucas asked if they could take my husband and me out to dinner. It was unusual because Cynthia hadn't initiated plans with us in months. The dinner was fine, but awkward. Lucas doesn't know how to have a casual conversation. He either stays silent or launches into long explanations about things nobody asked about. When the check came, it sat on the table for 15 minutes. My husband finally picked it up and paid for all 4 of us. After we left the restaurant, Cynthia asked if we could talk in the parking lot. That's when they told us they needed money for the wedding. Lucas explained that the venue had raised their prices and his parents couldn't afford to cover the difference. Cynthia's parents were already paying for the photographer and the flowers. They asked if we could help with the catering. My husband asked how much they needed. Lucas said $8,000. I actually laughed because I thought he was joking. He wasn't. I asked why they didn't just postpone the wedding until they could save up the money themselves. Lucas said that wasn't an option, because they had already set the date and sent invitations. He said that if family could help, then family should help. Then he added that we had plenty of time to rebuild our savings after we helped them out. That made my husband speak up. He asked what Lucas meant by rebuilding our savings. That's when Cynthia mentioned the life insurance money from my first husband. My first husband died in a car accident 7 years ago. The life insurance money is set aside for my son's education and for emergencies. I don't talk about it with people, and I have no idea how Cynthia even knew about it. I told them we weren't giving them $8,000. I said we could give them $2,000 as a wedding gift. Lucas looked at Cynthia and said $2,000 was basically nothing for people in our position. That's the moment I told them we wouldn't be giving them anything at all. Cynthia started crying and saying I was punishing her for asking for help. We left them in that parking lot. After that dinner, things got worse. My mom invited Cynthia and Lucas over to bake cookies because my mom knew Lucas liked baking. Lucas was rude to her the entire time. He criticized the recipe she used and said her oven temperature was wrong. He told her the cookies would have turned out better if she had followed his suggestions from the start. My mom didn't say much about it, but my dad was furious when he found out. The family decided to have a low-key Christmas that year because of everything going on. Cynthia and Lucas didn't show up. They said they were spending Christmas with his family instead. On New Year's, I drove with my siblings to visit our grandparents upstate. The entire 3-hour drive turned into a conversation about Cynthia and Lucas. Every single one of us agreed that we couldn't stand him. My brother said he wished the wedding wasn't happening. Nobody disagreed. In March, my parents celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary. I planned the whole party. We rented a space, hired a caterer, and sent out invitations 2 months in advance. The dress code was semi-formal. A week before the party, Cynthia texted me saying Lucas might not come because his old fraternity was having a reunion the same weekend. I told her that missing my parents' anniversary for a fraternity party was unacceptable. She said she would make sure he came. He showed up an hour late wearing a t-shirt, jeans, and a baseball cap. Everyone else was in dresses and button-downs. When my mom greeted him at the door, he told her he didn't really have a choice about coming. He sat at a table in the corner by himself and didn't talk to anyone. When we gathered everyone for a family photo, I went to get him, and he said he wasn't getting in the picture because this wasn't his family. My mom heard him say it. She walked away and I could see her wiping her eyes in the hallway. That was it for me. I went over to Lucas and told him to get out. I didn't raise my voice, but I made it very clear he needed to leave immediately. Cynthia stood up and said if he was leaving, then she was leaving too. I told her that if she walked out, she wasn't coming on our family trip to Florida next month. She stood there for a minute, then sat back down. Lucas left by himself. The party continued, but Cynthia barely spoke to anyone. She left right after we cut the cake. The next day, 12 adults from our family sat down with Cynthia at her parents' house. Everyone took turns explaining how Lucas had treated them. My uncle talked about the birthday party. My mom talked about the baking afternoon. My dad talked about the anniversary. Cynthia kept saying we didn't understand him. She said we made him uncomfortable. She said he was different when it was just the two of them. I realized then that nothing we said was going to change her mind. My husband and I sent back our RSVP card marked no. Cynthia called me 2 days later and asked why we weren't coming. I met her for coffee and told her I couldn't watch her marry someone who treated our family like garbage. I told her Lucas had slowly separated her from everyone who cared about her, and she couldn't see it happening. She said if I really cared about her, I would show up to support her no matter what. I said I did care about her, which is exactly why I couldn't watch her make this mistake. We haven't spoken since. The wedding happened 3 weeks ago. From what I heard, only Cynthia's parents and one uncle went from our side. My uncle wore jeans and a t-shirt to make a point. Lucas's whole family showed up in matching Hawaiian shirts. His mom wore a tiara and a silver gown that touched the floor. Cynthia's dad told my mom afterward that he got 4 minutes alone with his daughter the entire day. He said Lucas's best man made a speech calling Cynthia a decent first wife. He said Lucas's sister spilled red wine on Cynthia's dress, and Lucas told Cynthia she should have picked a different color anyway. My uncle left early and told my parents he wished he hadn't gone. Now Cynthia's parents are saying I should have been there to support her. Her dad says, maybe if I had gone to the wedding, Cynthia would have felt less alone, and things wouldn't have gotten so bad. My siblings are backing me up, but my parents are conflicted. They think I was right to set boundaries, but they also think I abandoned Cynthia when she needed family around her most. I keep replaying everything in my head. Maybe if I had just sucked it up and gone to the wedding, Cynthia would know she still had family on her side. Maybe I made everything worse by refusing to go, but I also know that watching her marry Lucas would have made me sick. I don't know what the right answer was. Update 1. I didn't expect this post to get so much attention. I've read through the comments and I appreciate everyone who took the time to respond. I'm updating now because something happened last week that I didn't see coming. The day after I made my original post, Cynthia's dad called me. He said Cynthia had left Lucas and was staying at his house. He said she needed space and didn't want to talk to anyone yet. I asked what happened. and he said he couldn't get into details but that I was right about everything. For 2 weeks, I didn't hear anything directly from Cynthia. Her dad would send updates saying she was doing okay and that she was figuring things out. Then last Monday night, my doorbell rang at almost 11. It was Cynthia. She was standing on my porch with 2 suitcases, and she asked if she could stay with me for a while. I brought her inside and set her up in the guest room. She didn't say much that first night. The next morning, she came down to the kitchen and finally started talking. She told me the entire story of what happened after the wedding. After the reception ended, Lucas told Cynthia they were going to his parents' house for the week instead of taking the honeymoon trip they had planned. Cynthia thought they were going to spend a few days there and then go on their trip. But when they got to his parents' house, Lucas said he had changed the honeymoon plans without telling her. He had scheduled a camping trip with his friends instead. Cynthia asked when they were going and Lucas said just him, not her. He left the next morning. Cynthia spent 5 days at her in-laws' house by herself. Lucas's mom spent those 5 days talking about grandchildren and asking when Cynthia planned to get pregnant. She told Cynthia that her job at the veterinary clinic wasn't a real career and that she should quit once she had kids. She made Cynthia go with her to 3 different family events that week and introduced her to people as the daughter-in-law who was going to give her grandchildren soon. Every night, Lucas's mom asked Cynthia to help her plan a baptism party for the future baby that didn't exist. Lucas called once during the entire 5 days. Cynthia asked when he was coming back, and he said he was having a great time with his friends and might extend the trip. Cynthia said she wanted to go home to her apartment, and Lucas said no. He said his mom wanted her there, and it would be rude to leave. Cynthia told him she would get a ride from someone else, and Lucas said if she left without his permission, he would be very upset with her. On the 5th day, Cynthia called her dad at midnight. She told him she needed him to come get her. Her dad drove 2 hours in the middle of the night and picked her up while Lucas's parents were asleep. Cynthia left a note saying she had a family emergency. Lucas called her the next morning and lost his mind when he found out she had left. He said she embarrassed him in front of his family. He said she had no right to leave without talking to him first. He said she owed his mother an apology. For the next week, Lucas and his family sent Cynthia hundreds of messages. His mom sent long texts about how Cynthia was breaking her son's heart. His dad sent emails saying Cynthia had made commitments and needed to honor them. His sisters called her workplace and asked her co-workers if Cynthia was having some kind of mental breakdown. Lucas himself sent messages that switched between begging her to come back and calling her selfish. Then Lucas filed a missing person report. The police showed up at Cynthia's parents' house to do a wellness check. Cynthia had to explain to 2 officers that she wasn't missing, she had just left her husband. The officers seemed annoyed that they were called out for nothing. After they left, Cynthia's dad told her she needed to talk to someone about getting legal help. That's around the time Cynthia reached out to her college roommate who works as a paralegal. The roommate connected her with a lawyer who handles family law. The lawyer told Cynthia she could likely get an annulment since the marriage was only 2 weeks old, and she could prove that Lucas had lied about several things during their engagement. The lawyer sent a letter to Lucas telling him to stop contacting Cynthia and her family. Lucas responded by sending Cynthia a spreadsheet. He had calculated everything he spent on the wedding and the engagement ring and their shared expenses over the past 3 years. At the bottom of the spreadsheet, he included an amount he said Cynthia owed him for not fulfilling her role as his wife. He sent her a payment request on Venmo for $16,000. Cynthia's lawyer told her to save everything Lucas sent and to not respond to any of it. The lawyer filed paperwork for the annulment and for a protective order to keep Lucas and his family away from Cynthia. The court date for the annulment is set for next month. That brings us to last Monday when Cynthia showed up at my house. She said she couldn't stay at her parents' place anymore because Lucas knew the address and kept driving by the house. He didn't know where I lived because Cynthia and I hadn't been close enough in recent months for her to visit. She asked if she could stay until the annulment was finalized. I told her she could stay as long as she needed. Cynthia's been here for a week now. She's been quiet, but she seems a little better each day. Yesterday she helped my son with his homework, and it reminded me of how she used to be before Lucas. My husband has been great about giving her space, but also making her feel welcome. We told her she doesn't need to figure out everything at once. Her dad came by 2 days ago. He sat with Cynthia in the living room for over an hour and apologized for making excuses for Lucas. He said he wanted so badly for Lucas to be a good person that he ignored everything right in front of him. He told Cynthia that he was proud of her for leaving and that he would support whatever she needed to do next. Cynthia didn't say much, but I could tell it mattered to her to hear him say those things. What I didn't expect was how much this has affected the rest of the family. My mom has called me every single day to check on Cynthia. My siblings have been dropping off food and supplies without being asked. Even my uncle, who wore jeans to the wedding, stopped by with a gift card for Cynthia to buy herself new clothes. Everyone has rallied around her in a way that I don't think would have happened if she was still defending Lucas. I don't know what happens next. The annulment process will take time. Cynthia needs to figure out where she's going to live long-term and whether she's staying at her current job or moving back to our hometown. But for now, she's safe, and she's surrounded by people who actually care about her. That feels like enough for the moment. Update 2. It's been a month and a half since my last update. The annulment hearing happened 2 weeks ago, and it's officially over. Cynthia is no longer married to Lucas. The hearing itself was straightforward. Cynthia's lawyer presented evidence that Lucas had misrepresented himself during the engagement and that he had been controlling from the start of the marriage. The judge granted the annulment without much pushback. Lucas didn't even show up to the hearing. His lawyer was there and tried to argue that Cynthia owed Lucas money for the wedding expenses, but the judge shut that down immediately. The judge said that gifts and shared wedding costs aren't recoverable in an annulment. Lucas's lawyer didn't push any further. After the hearing, Cynthia's lawyer told her that Lucas could still try to pursue her in small claims court for the money he claimed she owed, but that it was unlikely he would win. The lawyer also said the protective order would remain in place for 6 months and could be extended if Lucas violated it. So far, Lucas hasn't contacted Cynthia directly since the legal paperwork was filed, but his family is a different story. After the annulment was finalized, Lucas's mom started calling Cynthia's workplace again. She told Cynthia's boss that Cynthia had stolen family heirlooms and that she was a liar who had trapped her son into marriage. Cynthia's boss is a reasonable person who knows Cynthia well, so he didn't take the accusations seriously. But he did tell Cynthia that if the calls continued, he would have to involve their corporate office and possibly file a police report for harassment. That same week, Lucas's sister showed up at the veterinary clinic where Cynthia works. She came in pretending she needed to board her dog, but when Cynthia came to the front desk, his sister started yelling at her in front of clients. She called Cynthia a bunch of names I won't repeat here and said Cynthia had ruined her brother's life. The office manager had to ask her to leave. Cynthia called her lawyer immediately after, and the lawyer sent another cease and desist letter to Lucas's entire family. Through all of this, Cynthia has been living with me and my husband. She's been paying us rent, even though we told her it wasn't necessary. She's been helping around the house and spending time with my son, which has been good for both of them. But I started noticing that she wasn't making any plans beyond staying in our guest room. Every time I brought up her finding her own place or figuring out her next steps, she would change the subject. 3 weeks ago, my husband and I sat down with Cynthia and told her we needed to talk about the future. We made it clear that she wasn't being kicked out, but we wanted to know what her plan was. That's when Cynthia admitted she had been looking at apartments but couldn't afford anything on her own with her current salary. She said she had been thinking about going back to school to become a certified vet technician, but the program was expensive, and she didn't know if she could work full-time while taking classes. My husband suggested she talk to her parents about moving back home temporarily while she figured things out. Cynthia said she had already talked to her dad about it, and he had offered to let her move back in, but she was hesitant because Lucas knew where they lived. She was worried he or his family would keep showing up. That's when my mom got involved. My parents have a finished basement with a separate entrance. They offered to let Cynthia live there rent-free while she went back to school. They said she could come and go without worrying about running into Lucas because the basement door opens to the backyard, not the front of the house. Cynthia was hesitant at first, but my mom insisted. She said she wanted to help, and this was the best way she could do it. Cynthia moved into my parents' basement 2 weeks ago. She enrolled in an online vet technician program that starts next month. She's still working at the clinic part-time, and her boss has been flexible with her schedule so she can balance work and school. My dad installed a security camera at the back entrance to the basement just to give Cynthia peace of mind. So far, Lucas and his family haven't shown up. But something else happened that I wasn't expecting. About a week after Cynthia moved to my parents' place, I got a message from Lucas's sister. She found me on social media somehow and sent me a long message saying that our family had poisoned Cynthia against Lucas. She said Lucas was heartbroken and that Cynthia had led him on for years only to abandon him right after the wedding. She said if I had any decency, I would convince Cynthia to give Lucas another chance. I didn't respond to the message. I blocked her immediately and told Cynthia what happened. Cynthia said she wasn't surprised because Lucas's family had been blaming everyone except Lucas for the marriage falling apart. She said Lucas's mom had sent her a message before the protective order was in place, saying that Cynthia had taken advantage of her son's kindness and that the family would never forgive her. The worst part is that some people in our extended family are starting to whisper about whether Cynthia made the right choice. A few distant relatives have made comments to my mom about how Cynthia should have tried harder to make the marriage work. One of my dad's cousins said that marriage is hard for everyone at first and that Cynthia gave up too easily. My mom shut that down fast, but it bothered me that anyone in our family could look at what happened and think Cynthia was the problem. Cynthia's handling all of this better than I expected. She's been going to her classes and doing well at work. She signed up for a pottery class at the community center and joined a book club at the library. She's been rebuilding her life piece by piece. Last weekend, we had a family dinner at my parents' house, and Cynthia actually laughed at one of my brother's jokes. It was the first time I'd seen her laugh since before the engagement. Her dad has been checking in on her almost every day. He brings her coffee in the mornings before she goes to work, and they sit in the basement talking for a while. Cynthia told me that her relationship with her dad is better now than it's been in years. She said they've been able to talk openly about how badly things went with Lucas, and how her dad is trying to make up for not seeing it sooner. The annulment is done. Cynthia is building a new life. Lucas and his family are hopefully going to leave her alone now that the legal stuff is finished, but I have a feeling this isn't completely over yet. Update 3. This is going to be my last update because I think this situation has finally reached its end point. It's been 2 months since Cynthia moved into my parents' basement. She's been doing well in her vet tech program, and she's been picking up more hours at the clinic. Things were calm for a while. No contact from Lucas or his family. Cynthia was starting to relax and actually enjoy her life again. Then last month, Lucas's mom showed up at my parents' house. She came to the front door and knocked for 10 minutes straight before my dad answered. My mom was at work and my dad was home alone. Lucas's mom told my dad that she needed to speak to Cynthia because there was a family emergency. My dad told her Cynthia wasn't there, which was true because Cynthia was at work. Lucas's mom didn't believe him. She said she knew Cynthia was living there and that she had a right to speak to her daughter-in-law. My dad told her that Cynthia wasn't her daughter-in-law anymore and that she needed to leave the property. Lucas's mom refused. She said she wasn't leaving until she talked to Cynthia. My dad called the police. Lucas's mom left before they arrived, but my dad filed a report anyway. The officer who came to take the statement said that if she came back, my parents could pursue a restraining order. My dad called Cynthia at work and told her what happened. Cynthia immediately called her lawyer. The lawyer contacted Lucas's family with another cease and desist letter and threatened to pursue harassment charges if anyone from their family contacted Cynthia or her family again. That was 3 weeks ago, and there hasn't been any contact since, but the damage was done. Cynthia didn't feel safe at my parents' house anymore, knowing that Lucas's family knew where she was living. She started looking for apartments again, but everything in her budget was either too far from her work or in neighborhoods she didn't feel comfortable in. She was getting stressed about money and about finding a place to live while juggling school and work. That's when my brother stepped in. My brother lives about 40 minutes away in a different town. He owns a duplex and rents out one side to a tenant. The tenant was planning to move out at the end of the month anyway, so my brother offered the place to Cynthia at a reduced rent. He said she could have it for half the normal rate until she finished school and got a full-time job as a certified vet tech. Cynthia tried to argue that it was too generous, but my brother insisted. He said he would rather have someone he trusted living there than a stranger anyway. Cynthia moved into the duplex 2 weeks ago. She brought most of the furniture my parents had stored in their garage from when she moved out of the apartment she shared with Lucas. My siblings and I helped her move everything in over a weekend. The duplex is small, but it's in a nice area, and it's close to her work and to the community college where she takes some of her in-person classes. Since moving to the duplex, Cynthia has been doing better. She's been decorating the place and making it feel like hers. She adopted a cat from the clinic after one of the strays they took and had kittens. She's been going to her pottery class every week, and she brought over a bowl she made to show my son. She seems lighter somehow, like she's finally able to breathe again. Last week, we had another family dinner at my parents' house. Cynthia came and brought her new cat to show everyone. During dinner, Cynthia thanked all of us for not giving up on her even when she pushed everyone away. She said she didn't realize how much Lucas had isolated her until she was out of the relationship and could see it clearly. She said she was sorry for making everyone feel like they didn't matter during the engagement and the wedding planning. Nobody said much in response, because I think we all understood that Cynthia didn't need to apologize. She had been manipulated and controlled and she got out. That's what mattered. My dad did say that he was sorry for making excuses for Lucas for so long. Cynthia told him it was okay and that she understood why he wanted to believe Lucas was a good person. The conversation moved on to other things after that. My mom asked Cynthia about her classes, and Cynthia talked about her program for a while. My husband asked if she was still doing the book club, and Cynthia said yes and that they were reading a mystery novel she was really enjoying. It felt normal in a way that family dinners hadn't felt in over a year. As for Lucas, I have no idea what he's doing now. Cynthia hasn't heard from him since the annulment. His family hasn't contacted her since the incident at my parents' house. Cynthia's lawyer said the protective order is still in place for another 4 months and can be extended if needed. Cynthia said she hopes it doesn't come to that, and that Lucas has just moved on with his life. I asked Cynthia recently if she regrets the marriage at all. She said no. She said it was the worst experience of her life, but it taught her what she actually wants in a relationship and what she won't tolerate. She said she's not interested in dating anyone right now and that she's focusing on school and work and rebuilding her friendships. She said maybe in a year or two she'll think about dating again, but for now she's content being on her own. I'm proud of her for getting out and for doing the hard work of rebuilding her life. I'm glad our family was able to come together to support her, even though it took way too long for some people to see what was happening. I'm glad I didn't go to that wedding because I think it would have been unbearable to watch, and I'm glad Cynthia knows now that she has people who will always be in her corner no matter what. That's where things stand now. Cynthia is safe, she's working toward her goals, and she's surrounded by family who actually care about her well-being. I don't think Lucas or his family will bother her again, but if they do, we'll handle it. For now, things are as good as they can be given everything that happened.